We have a information packed pre-bid conference for you. I'm going to begin and cover some of the general items in the procurement, and then I'll turn it over to Meg Wallace, the Assistant Director over the most programs. Her and her team will cover more of the specific areas. We'll have the Assistant Director over research, Travis Johnson, and his team cover the measuring impact and continuous learning section. And then for fiscal and budget, we have Alicia Williams, who's the Assistant Director in fiscal, covering the fiscal budget section. And then finally, we'll have Tricia Dowell, who's the Assistant Director over procurement. She'll be covering the contract administration and procurement system, the CAPS system, which is the system that you will utilize to submit any pre-bid questions to us. And it's the system that you'll utilize to submit the application. So I hope that you're able to stay for all of the pre-bid. If for some reason you can't, this is being recorded and we will be posting it on our website later. We'll take breaks in between sections to make sure that we answer your questions. And I'm just going to jump right in and get going. So this pre-bid conference is the Maximizing Out of School Time pre-bid. We call it for short our most programs. And the first area that I want you to pay attention to is our timetable. So today is the pre-bid, November 3rd. Today, beginning at 4 o'clock until November 5th at 4 o'clock, you're going to have the opportunity to submit questions through the CAPS system. So please don't send questions to CSE staff directly. Any questions that aren't answered, any questions that you didn't think about to ask during the pre-bid, you can submit it once the pre-bid closes through the CAPS system. And you'll have until November 5th at 4 o'clock to submit those questions. We will post the pre-bid question and answers by November 12th. So we'll try to get them out sooner than that, but the deadline for us is to post them, and they'll be posted back in the CAP system by November 12th. So please pay attention to the deadline to submit your agency. Deadline for submission of agency fiscal liability. This is really important. You have to submit information to us in the CAP system again by November 16th at 4 o'clock. This is an important deadline. If you miss this deadline, you won't be able to submit for this procurement. So please make sure that you have that deadline highlighted. The notice of fiscal financial viability test results will be given to you by November 22nd or sooner. So this is when we look at the information you submitted for your agency's fiscal viability, and we'll give you the results, and that will, you'll receive those results November 22nd or sooner. If you need a fiscal sponsor, the deadline to submit the fiscal sponsor's audited financial statements in the CAP system is December 1st by 4 p.m. And again, if you need a fiscal sponsor and you do not submit this information by the deadline, you won't be able to proceed with submitting an application. So again, another important deadline. The deadline to submit the application in CAPS is December 13th at 4 o'clock. And then the applicant interviews are February 22nd through March 2nd. So you'll be, for those who submit an application for this procurement, you'll be given a invitation, a date and time for the applicant interview. So make sure that you now put on your calendar that these are the dates that the applicant interviews are going to happen, so that the key folks in your agency are available when those dates are determined. And then the council award determinations go to our council on April 21st, and the contract effective date is going to be August 1st for year-round programs, for most year-round programs. I want to clarify that if there's a startup period needed for the most program, then it's going to be an earlier start date. It could be June 1st. For summer only programs, the start date is summer of 2023. That's our summer only programs. They begin summer of 2023, May 1st of 2023. So please keep this timetable somewhere close to you. I would make a copy of it and highlight the important dates and keep it up on your computer so that you can see it and keep track of if you're meeting those deadlines. So I'm going to go to page 6 of who may apply. And just summarize for you, CSC invites qualified applicants to submit proposals to replicate effective programming for maximizing out of school time, inclusion supports, and catch kid clubs. So within this procurement, there are 6 applications. So there are maximizing out of school time, the catch kid club, and also inclusion support. So just want you to keep track of the fact that there are 6 applications. Make sure to create the correct application for the correct service area that you want to submit an application for. CSC is prohibited from funding any entity under the jurisdiction of the Department of Education. Therefore, the School Board of Broward County, including public charter schools, are not eligible to apply. So that gives you our who may apply. The service goal budgeted amounts on page 6 and 7. Just want to highlight for you that for our most inclusion, we used to call most inclusion most general population programs. We are referring to it in this procurement as most inclusion, so that we're all, so no one's confused about the new language. So most inclusion, we have approximately $13.2 million allocated for this service area, and that's for fiscal year 22-23. For most special need programming, we have approximately $10.3 million allocated, and that's again for fiscal year 22-23. For the Catch Kids Club training and coaching, for that application, we have $50,000 allocated. We anticipate 1 award, and that's for fiscal year 22-23. And for our inclusion supports program for fiscal year 22-23, we have $105,000 allocated, and we anticipate 1 award for inclusion supports as well. So let me just go through my notes. So for most, we have an application for most inclusion year-round. We have an application for most special needs year-round. We have an application for most inclusion summer only. For most special needs summer only. So those are the 4 most applications. And then there's an application for the Catch Kids Club and an application for inclusion supports. And wanted to point out that programs must have a minimum of 4 children in order for us to serve the site as a special needs site, and a minimum of 20 children to serve as an inclusion site. So please keep that in mind when you're submitting the applications. So let me see, I'm going to jump over to the cone of silence, which is on page 23. And just wanted to reiterate that right now CSC is in a cone of silence. So that means that this pre-bid conference is your only opportunity to ask us questions in a live format about this procurement. So please don't send questions to CSC staff after this pre-bid conference ends. If you do have additional questions that you just didn't think about to ask during this conference, go ahead and submit them through the CAP system, and we'll include those in the pre-bid question and answer document that'll be posted later. And please also remember that the review committee members are also under a cone of silence. So if you're aware of anyone who will be a rater for this procurement, please also recognize that they're also under a cone of silence. let's see. And then wanted to go to page 30, the conflict of interest, and just make sure, page 30B, all applicants must disclose the nature and the existence of any relationship with any CSC council member, officer, or employee of CSC, and et cetera. I won't read it all for you, but please make sure to read that. So if you do feel like there may be a conflict, please submit in the application for funding information relevant to that conflict. There's a question in the application for funding that you would answer. So I wanted to make sure that you know where to look in the procurement to understand if you do have a conflict or not. And if you have any concerns, you can write that in the application for funding in the relevant question. And I talked about there are 6 applications for funding. There's also rating tools that are associated with those applications. So I strongly encourage you to review the rating tools if possible. And I know that everyone's schedule is super busy, so it's really hard to finish these applications early. But if at all possible, please try to finish them early and then give the application to someone you know with the rating tool and ask them if you answered the questions well, so that you have someone else reviewing the document for you. And I think at this point, I'm done with this section. Are there any questions about the areas that I covered? We are going to cover, like I said, we're going to go over the most overview and program requirements and the other areas. So are there any questions specific to this area that I covered? And then Key, I can't see everybody. So if there are questions.
I have a question, I think.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure how to get you. I don't know how to raise my hand on this one.
All right, no problem, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you. And you may tell me to put it off until another section, but when you were referring to the financial viability already, which we have to, obviously, that's the first one we have to get done. I don't know how it is for everybody, because I'm sure everybody right now is in their own special circumstances. I had gotten my some PPP money the last day of my fiscal year. So it shows in my audit, it shows in my audit as a liability. They have it as a current and total liabilities, and it's already been forgiven. So it actually doesn't exist. And with that on there, it basically makes it so I can't apply.
Okay, so it will be a question that I'll defer to our fiscal department when they get to the section, which will be a couple of sections later. So, but I just want, Michael, I just want to make sure that I understand the question. So your agency was awarded a PPE loan, and on your audited financial statements, year end, it shows that loan and it shows that it's a liability. And as a result of that loan, you have applied our fiscal viability test to your audit, and it's demonstrating that you'll need a fiscal sponsor in order to apply for this procurement. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Okay. Okay. So
at the same time, like I said, all because of that PPP, which doesn't even exist anymore. It couldn't have happened at a worse time. It was the day before my fiscal year closed. So I had nowhere to put it.
Okay. So so that question I'll defer to Alicia Williams, the Assistant Director for Fiscal. And when it gets to her section, she may decide that question will be answered in writing when we submit, when we issue the pre-bid question and answer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I won't answer it right now, and she may be able to answer it later. If not, we'll answer it. If not, we'll answer in writing later. And you were saying that the loan has been forgiven?
Yeah, I haven't noticed that it's already forgiven and everything. So okay. It's already like non-existent. And I really think that my accountant did it wrong, or when he did it originally, because he put the entire thing into current asset, into current liabilities, which when I spoke to him, he said, it probably shouldn't have been in there in the first place, but that audit's already been turned into you and you guys already have that. So I guess I also wanted to find out at the same time on the same thing. I saw there was like a cure period for this, just for the financial viability. So I was just hoping that there would be some kind of communication in between them getting it, seeing it and say, oh, this is no good and this is just denying.
Okay, so yes, there is a cure period. And during that cure period, if we have additional questions, CSE staff will reach out to you to ask those questions and potentially request additional information.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions? And if there are, I can't see everybody, so please feel free to ask the question. So hearing silence, I think that means there's no more questions. And again, if after, we're going to have another opportunity to ask additional questions. So I'll go ahead and then turn it over to Meg, Liza, and Jessica, and they're going to be talking about the most, beginning on page 16, if you guys want to get to that page of the document, they'll be going over the most overview and program requirements.
Thank you, Maria. So the staffing requirements, staff recruitment and retention. As we all know, it's important to be able to hire staff that connect with the kids, that motivate them, encourage them. And we want staff who are competent in behavior management techniques. Teacher requirements. A certified teacher is required, and our definition of a certified teacher is someone with a current or expired teaching certificate. It can be out of the state or even out of the country, or it's a teacher who is in their final 2 years of seeking their 4-year teaching degree. And the teachers need to provide the children services during homework time for an hour a day, Monday through Thursday, and also during the summer in project-based learning activities. We also encourage you to include planning time for the teachers during the summer. Background screening, you need to comply with all of the level 2 background screening information through DCF. There's also a different screening requirements for school-based programs that need to be followed. Minimum age requirement of the children working in the program, I'm sorry, not the children, but with the staff in the program need to be 18 years of age, and they have to possess a high school diploma or GED. The minimum wage requirements. The minimum salary for all most Catch Kids Club and inclusion supports employees is $15 per hour. If you have staff who are salaried, that equates to $31,200 a year. Staff development and training requirements. We have many training requirements. As you can see, they're all listed here and they're in the RFP as well. So the direct service staff, including program supervisors, shall complete these trainings once during the 4-year RFP cycle. This does not include the Catch Kids Club staff or inclusion support staff, although we highly recommend some of them. And then we're going to talk about the program parameters, which is on page 8. Thank you. Inclusion has always been a big piece of the most programs, which is why, as Maria said, we've actually moved from calling it most GP to most inclusion. We used to say most GP with inclusion. Now it's just most inclusion and most special needs. It's important that the children enrolled in our programs, if they need accommodations, if they need support to participate in a program successfully, that our providers are able to address those needs individually, regardless of the diagnosis or disability. Classroom management, which I discussed a little bit earlier, how important that is with our staff, that they be able to have an effective management plan. The environment needs to be one that children are having fun and they're learning. Broward County Child Care Licensing and Enforcement. Most programs operating in the school year must be licensed or exempt through Broward County Child Care Licensing and Enforcement section. This is a non-negotiable piece. If you have questions about CCLE, which is the Child Care Licensing and Enforcement, if you have questions about this, the number and link are here in the proposal. The reason it doesn't say in the summer only applicants is because the county does not license those programs. So that's why they're not included in the summer. And as part of your proposal, you'll need to submit a copy of each of your child care license or letter of exemption for each site. The sliding fee scale that we use in most is a very generous to one to the parents. I think here I just really want to point out the fact that that the providers never turn a child away because a parent can't afford it. This just should never happen. Our programs, we do have the sliding fee scale in the event that the parent can pay something, which then helps go towards the overall cost of the program, because the collected fees that you collect, they are deducted from your invoice as third-party payments. And again, it says here, no child shall be denied services due to an inability to pay. So some of you are going to be operating on a school site and some will not be. So operating on a Broward County School District site, there's two ways that we're aware of that you can do this. If a provider was approved for an award under the before and after school child care's eligibility for offering these programs, then that is one way. Another way, if you were not awarded, the provider might obtain permission from the proposed school site principal to provide services on the campus. So if you're in the school site, you will be charged school fees, which include school usage fees and consumable fees. Under the RFP for the school board's facility usage agreement, this is the maximum that you would be charged. The attachment is included, which will go through for you how much it cost for the school year, how much for the summer, and how much for those days that you decide you want to provide care during the school year when the schools are closed. And on top of that are the consumable items that the school district, if you're under the RFP, must pay, which we've written here. And also a yearly fee of $15 per child based on enrollment closest to October 15th. We will also pay for up to one campus monitor at school sites. Also, in order to be on a school site, you will need to get a principal authorization letter, which we have included in the packet for you. It's an attachment. For each site that you want to be providing these services, you will need to have the authorization letter. The child to staff ratio will be at 1:20 for children in kindergarten through 5th grade. And ratios for children with special needs will be based on the needs of the individual populations within a program. So how many days encompass a year-round program? A year-round program needs to offer 180 days of after school and a minimum of 8 non-school days during the school year. Non-school days occur on days that schools are closed and include teacher planning days and holidays. And the provider has the ability to choose which of those days they plan to cover. A provider may cover much more than 8 days, but the minimum is 8. The summer program should have a minimum of 8 weeks, so usually 40 days. However, it could be as few as 38 in consideration of closures for Independence Day and Juneteenth. For the family fees, for our registration fees, these are not to exceed amounts. You can charge up to $10 per child per school year for after school, which includes typical after school days, early release, and non-school days during the school year. For most, the fee shall not exceed for summer most, the fee shall not exceed $15 per child. And if you want to charge less than that, you certainly have that ability. You need to know your population and what they can afford to pay you. If there's other after-school programs running at the campus or at the community site you might be in, please know that they cannot be dually enrolled without our prior approval. And then the next section we're going to cover is the desired populations.
Excuse me, Meg, can I ask a question of the previous section before you move on?
Sure, absolutely.
I had my little raised hand emoji up. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're fine. Go ahead, Sean. Happy to
So
answer.
the question I have is, since we have such dense ratios, when we look at the staff training requirements, in the past, our classroom leads took all of the trainings, and our additional counselors in the room took some of the trainings, because this is a pretty extensive list. And the majority of our staff work 3 hours a day and have full-time jobs. Is there a possibility that you all can go back and evaluate this question in terms of, can it be a minimum number of staff required to do some of these trainings, as opposed to 100% of the direct support staff doing all of these trainings?
So Meg, Sean, we'll answer that in writing.
That's what I was hoping. I was hoping you'd go back and look at it and see if there's a possibility. That's a lot of people to do a lot of trainings. And with the ratios and the turnover, it's a lot. So I appreciate that, Maria. Thank you.
And I do just
You're
want to
welcome.
point out, though, that it is over a 4-year period. So it's not that everybody has to have it all the first year. It is
Right.
Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Gary?
And there's, yes.
Sorry.
Yes, my question is with regards to principal authorization letter. I downloaded it and it has draft stamped through it. Is that correct? Is that the intended format?
You may remove the draft.
No, it's stamped into the document.
And I guess the document's a PDF.
Right.
No, the actual attachment is a Word document, so you should be able to remove it. It is combined in a PDF with the entire RFP with all the attachments, but there is an actual attachment just for that principal letter, which is a Word document.
Okay, I did download that individual document, but I'll double check that again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel Taylor?
Hi, Meg, it's Andy Fernandez. We talked on the phone a couple of times. How are you? I have a couple of questions. I don't know. First, with the teacher certificates, when you say expired, could it be like a retired teacher that's maybe their certificates like literally 20 or 30 years before?
Yes.
And what kind of proof do we have to show of that?
You would need to show their certificate, even if it's 20 years old.
Okay, and what about maybe a private school teacher that maybe be teaching for 10 or 15 years, but they never got a certificate because they didn't need it? They would be excluded.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And certainly the ones that are in school in their last 2 years, they're not going to have a certificate, but they just have to show proof that they're in the FAU program or prior college or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect on that. We don't have to charge registration fees. It's a May. The 8 non-school days, can they be like an extra summer week as a part of that, or summer a separate component? So it would have to be during the school year.
They have to be during the school year. It's
Okay.
separate.
Okay. And with the license, obviously, if schools are changing providers, us in our case wouldn't have a license for that location. Second would be if us did not need a license for what we currently do, because we're predominantly middle school, high school. Do we have to have a license before we submit this, or can we have the license as long as we have it before, obviously, the RFP goes into effect? What's the timetable on that?
You do not, because, and there is a section, I'm trying to find out where it is, but there is a section that talks about the fact that there may be a change.
Yes, we saw that.
Having it. So no, it doesn't have to be submitted at the time of the application. It would need, your principal letter needs to confirm that. But no, we understand that.
Okay.
Was that it for?
I think for this section, that would be what I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Kareem Edwards.
Hi, my question is, is there a possibility of the certification requirement being waived? I know it was the last grant cycle because of COVID.
No, I don't see that happening unless there is a situation with COVID again,
Okay.
or some other sort of situation like we've had with COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Gary?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up with Tricia. Like I said, I had downloaded the Word document that was a separate attachment from the RFP of that principal authorization. And the Word draft appears to be, it doesn't appear, it's not editable. It seems to be like stamped into the page.
It is probably on there as a watermark, which.
Yeah, like a watermark, yes.
Yeah, so if it's a Word document, you are able to take that off, but I can double check it after to make sure. And if you need assistance in getting the watermark off, let me know. You can submit that in a question and then we can give you the.
Okay. I'm admittedly not a Word expert, so it looks like a watermark. If it's removable, I'll consult with one of the folks here that are a lot smarter than me, and hopefully I'll be able to solve it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Caesar? You have a question?
Yes, good afternoon. Quick question. Relating to the pay for staff at 15, is that for all positions, including entry level? That's the minimum that we're bumping all of the positions to? And second part of the question, in past, we've had discussions last funding cycle of the possibility of parks departments or city departments having some type of exemption from the CCLE licensing for K through 5, since we're not required to have it for 6 through 12. If you could please advise on those.
If childcare licensing will award you an exemption letter, then we will accept, well, we will determine if that's acceptable. We would review it and then let you know if it was acceptable.
Got it. And second part of the question, as far as pay for staff, the new minimum pay for any staff, including entry level counselor or anything, is at 15 now?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Are there any other questions? All right, I just have one other section here, and that's about the desired populations. So we have as an attachment our priority school list, which is for the, so I almost said the general population because we're just so used to that. I'm sorry, but the inclusion for the most inclusion RFP proposal. I just wanted to point out how these free and reduced lunch percentages were, how they came about. So you can see at the top left of this priority school list, there were 4 sources. We looked at Broward County Public Schools and benchmark enrollment report for school year 2021 and for school year 21-22. We also looked at the Florida Department of Education Survey 2 and Survey 3 during the last school year. If we found on any of these 4 reports where the free and reduced lunch percentage was given at 86 or higher, they are included on this list. It only had to be on one of the list, and then they were included. And that's just important to point out because I know that it was a challenging year with COVID for having parents fill out the free and reduced lunch applications in their schools. So that's why we did a thorough a group of looking at different surveys and different dates for these free and reduced lunch counts. One other thing to point out under the inclusion population is that it will now, most will serve children 5 years and up to 12, as we have done in the past. The special needs population serves children 3 years up to and including 22. For children with special needs, the priority school list is not applicable. Children with special needs do not need to attend or reside in the attendance boundary of schools on the priority school list, but they must reside in Broward County because those are the children that the tax dollars are going towards. Are there any questions on the population, the desired population? Okay. And thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we limited to the schools that you identified? Or can we choose other schools outside of the ones you mentioned?
The children have to attend those schools that are on the list. So there are sometimes where we have communities or cities or community sites that want to run their own programs, and they can, but the children have to come from those schools.
Okay, so schools that's not on the list cannot participate.
Correct.
All right.
Right, and Elder Geis, it's specific to it's specific to the most general population or inclusion part of the grant. For most general population or inclusion, you have to be one of the schools on the list in order to one of the schools on the list or be in the attendance boundaries of that school. So like Meg was saying, maybe the program won't be on the school site and the school site has, let's say, a 2-mile attendance boundary, and the provider can then propose to serve the kids from that school at a community site that is within the attendance boundary of the school.
I understand.
I
guess our main concern was, as you know, we're in middle schools, and oftentimes when the children come to us, it's almost too late. So we want to reach back into elementary school so there can be some type of transition so we can help the children at an earlier age. But the best to do that is to work with the feeder schools in the area that feed the schools that we presently serve.
No, I understand what you're saying. And, the schools on our list are the ones that, as Meg previously said, they are 86% or higher free and reduced lunch. And as long as they demonstrated that on any of the 4 documents that we looked at to determine eligibility, they were included on the list. So the schools on our list are some of the highest need schools that we have in Broward County. Understanding it, and I hear what you're saying, every single school isn't included. So I hear you. To submit to serve, it would have to be a school on the list to be on their site, or the attendance boundary of a school on the list.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I see Maria Meyer.
So I just want to clarify from the other Maria. So if the students are from the boundaries of any of those schools, but don't attend any of those schools, but they live with and reside within those boundaries of those schools that have been listed, are they still eligible for the MOST program?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Candace from the Boys and Girls Club. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So it's no longer by Title I schools, it's by the priority list that you guys have provided in the RFP, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, but there's always been a priority list. It's never been all of the Title I schools. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for the question. Okay, so moving on, I'll introduce Liza. Oh, I forget, I can't see everybody. So, so Liza Khan, who's a senior program manager, and she is going to be starting with our program requirements.
Hi, everyone. So I will be going through the school year and summer requirements from MOST. Again, I know it's been mentioned, but just remember that there's 4 different applications for MOST. The inclusion, which is formerly our general population, with the language change, we just want to make sure everyone really understands that. So it'll be inclusion year-round, special needs year-round, inclusion summer only, and special needs summer only. So our first component for the school year is homework assistance and supplemental activities. So your proposal must demonstrate that homework and supplemental activities are offered for 1 hour each day. A certified teacher with the current or expired certificate, and out-of-state or country certificate, or who is in their final 2 years of their 4-year teaching degree, like Meg explained earlier, must conduct the hour of homework and supplemental activities Monday through Thursday. On Friday, it does not need to be led by a certified teacher. So homework really needs to be the primary focus of this hour. We know sometimes with the younger grades and some kids at our special needs sites, there might not be 60 minutes of homework, but in that case, you need to be doing engaging supplemental activities, not just passing out worksheets to the kids. So the proposals need to demonstrate how you will provide a diversity of supplemental activities in your program. And we list some on the page, like arts and crafts, STEAM, literacy activities. So just explain to us what you will be doing. So our next component is our physical fitness component, which we will be using Catch Kids Club. So Catch stands for the Coordinated Approach to Child Health, and it was developed to increase motivation and participation in moderate to vigorous physical activity while using non-elimination games for children of all skill levels. There's 3 components of the Catch Kids Club, which are structured physical activities, educational lessons related to nutrition, physical activity and screen time reduction, and hands-on snack preparation. So the fitness component should really be fun and engaging and promote teamwork for all the children, regardless of their skill level. And you can find more information on the website listed in front of you on page 10 and 11. And CSC will offer no cost Catch Kids Club training to all awarded applicants. So our next requirement is the healthy snacks and meals. So our providers are required to provide the children with 1 afternoon snack during the school year. Providers must apply to the after-school meals program through the Florida Department of Health, and all the contact information and websites are listed in the RFP. To begin serving meals or snacks, you contact the Florida Department of Health and they will connect you with an existing sponsor, or you can apply to become a sponsor. On non-school days, it's expected that parents will provide lunch and snacks for their children, but the provider should still include a limited budget for emergency food just in case. I see Tanya's hand up.
Hi, Liza.
Hi.
You have to mute. Hold on, we're sharing an office and didn't realize. Oh, got it. Sorry. So do we need to provide dinner as well? Or is it just snack?
You need to apply for the after-school meals program to see if that, we're just requiring that it be a snack, but you all have to apply for the after-school meals program. And
correct. But that could just, because right now we're required to do a snack and supper in 3 hours. So we can serve them one meal in 3 hours instead of two?
So just so I understand the question. You understand that we're requiring you to apply for the after schools program. If you get approved, then you would be serving them supper.
Okay, no, that's what wasn't clear, because it said they're provided to do one afternoon snack. Right now, through the food program, we're required to give them one snack and supper. So is it still 2 meals in the afternoon?
Yes, if you get approved through the after school meals program, it will still be snack and supper.
Okay. Thank you.
So to continue with the healthy snacks and meals is our nutrition education component. And it's a great time to discuss nutrition and healthy lifestyle choices during snack and meal time. And the nutrition education should be delivered through the Catch Kids Club that I mentioned earlier to really educate the children about the importance of proper nutrition and balanced diet. The nutritional component may be offered as a standalone component, or nutrition related activities can be incorporated into other program activities. So our next component is our social emotional learning, which in most we use PATHS, which stands for Promoting Alternative Thinking Strategies, which many of you are already familiar with. So PATHS promotes social and emotional learning, character development, bullying prevention, and provides problem-solving abilities and other life skills required for positive relationships. Our most provider staff should be comfortable using these lessons in teachable moments and implement the curriculum in the lesson format. Lessons should be interactive, creative, and promote positive self-esteem, pro-social peer associations, and good citizenships. You can find all the information on the website listed, and CSC will offer no-cost PATHS training to the applicants that are awarded funding. So our next component is the family engagement piece. During the school year, a minimum of 2 family engagement initiatives must be provided. The proposal should demonstrate how you will partner with the families to plan events beyond the traditional informational nights. Families really need to feel comfortable to express issues and concerns and work with your staff to find solutions. Volunteer opportunities, special events, and newsletters are great ways to improve communication and participation with your families. And some examples of family engagement could be open houses, spaghetti dinners, or musical performances. And we encourage you to also include family education on community services and available resources during these family activities, such as 211, they would come out and present or have a resource there. So next component is our cultural arts and enrichment. So proposals must show how the programs will provide a diversity of cultural arts and enrichment activities to the children. Providers will be required to use a minimum of 4 approved Broward County cultural artists on the Arts and Education Directory, which is listed on page 12. The directory lists artists and organizations that provide exciting and interactive learning dedicated to cultural arts and education experiences. Enrichment activities include off-site field trips, on-site shows and presentations. Some examples are bowling, visiting a museum, or having an artist come to the site. The kids always look forward to these activities as they might not have the opportunity to do some of these things unless they were attending your program. So next up is our music therapy component for our special needs providers. So a minimum of 30 minutes of music therapy must be incorporated once per week into the program schedule. It must be provided by a certified music therapist and will enhance social and emotional skills, communication, and academic goals. So our last component for the school year is our Reading Explorers program. So CSC is contracting with FIU to provide literacy services to our most providers. And during the school year, they will provide coaching and consultation to infuse literacy into your after-school programs using evidence-based strategies. They will complete a needs assessment, observation tools, and on-site technical assistance. As appropriate, a select number of CSC most providers will be required to work with the Reading Explorers program to improve their staff's understanding and capacity to ensure literacy is infused in the after-school program. So those are our school components. Does anybody have any specific questions around anything that I talked about?
Hi, Liza. It's Donna LaValle with Smith Community Mental Health. In reference to the music therapy portion that you've added to this RFP,
yes.
Would you have a list of certified providers similar to the list you have for cultural arts, or is that up to the agency to solicit within the community?
I believe
We could provide a list, but it wouldn't be exhaustive. You know, it would be a list of maybe, well, I think we'll answer that in writing. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Adriana, you unmute. Did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay. So I am going to move on to our most summer components, and some are the same but have a few differences, and I already mentioned. So first is our project-based learning, which we refer to our PBL. This is our summer academic component, and PBL is a teaching method where children gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended time to investigate and respond to an engaging problem or question. So all the academic components should be included in your PBL lessons, and they should align with the Florida standards. You can also incorporate cultural arts and enrichment activities into your PBL lesson if they connect to the theme that you're planning. And CSE will provide no-cost PBL trainings to the providers that are awarded funding. There is no daily minimum time for each academic component in PBL, but a minimum of 2 hours per day of PBL shall be offered daily in the summer. And again, a certified teacher with a current or expired certificate, out of state or country certificate, or teaching students in their final 2 years of their degree need to plan and conduct the PBL lessons and activities. So proposals need to explain the benefits of PBL and how it will be incorporated with hands-on and engaging activities for the kids. So next in the summer is the physical fitness component, which is still the Catch Kids Club. And I already spoke about Catch, but in the summer, it needs to be offered a minimum of 60 minutes each day. And again, CSE will be providing the no-cost training to the awarded applicants. So moving on to healthy snacks and meals. During the summer, the provider is required to provide the children with one morning and afternoon snack. The provider must apply to the summer break spot program for meals, and in the application, you must request to serve a breakfast or morning snack and lunch. The program is funded by the USDA, and you will need to contact them and speak with their prospective sponsor program specialist, and they will walk you through everything, and all the contact information you need is in the RFP on page 13. So the nutrition education is the same as I already mentioned. You can use snack and meal times to discuss healthy choices and use the Kids Club curriculum. So the next is social emotional learning. In the summer, it is still PATHs. Proposals need to demonstrate how PATHs will be utilized. And again, CSE will provide training to those awarded. So our family engagement in the summer, proposals need to show a minimum of 2 initiatives that will be provided. Again, just remember to partner with the families to plan fun and educational nights and events for them. I know I gave some examples earlier, which would still apply in the summer. I know they love going to the graduations and all the musical performances in the summer as well. So our cultural arts and enrichment activities during the summer programs must consist of a minimum of 1 enrichment activity each week of summer camp and must include at least 3 cultural arts activities. And they also need to be from the Arts and Education Directory that I mentioned earlier. So supplemental activities, I mentioned this during the school year, but these can just be done as time allows and should be creative and engaging for the kids. And they can be arts and crafts, literacy, any digital-based games. You just have to show in your proposals that you need to describe the diversity of supplemental activities that you will be offering to the children in the summer. So one thing in the summer that is not in the school year is water safety. Proposals need to include plans to expose children to water safety and swimming. All programs must include an in-water swimming component. You will need to coordinate water safety lessons through Swim Central. Again, music therapy is the same in the summer for our special needs providers. You must do a minimum of 30 minutes once per week with a certified music therapist. And the last component to talk about for the summer is the Reading Explorers component. It is different than it is in the school year. During the summer, a select number of CSC most providers will work with FIU and they will provide small group tutoring services to rising kindergarten, first and second graders to improve their reading skills. And it's tailored to each child and delivered by a certified teacher. And it's delivered 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week for 6 to 8 weeks in the summer. And it includes reading assessments, personalized feedback for parents, and resource connections if there's really a strong struggle for the kids with their reading. So that's how it's different in the summer than in the school year. And those are the summer components. I know that's a lot of information to throw at you in 5 pages of the RFP, but feel free to reference any of the pages. Does anybody have any specific questions? Michelle? I don't know. There we go. I think you're on.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I just had a quick question on the water safety component. So we have pools at 2 of our clubs, and it's saying here that we are required to use Swim Central. So we're not able to use our own swim program.
Are your pools, don't you go through Swim Central for your pools? I mean, I know they're yours, but as far as providing lessons or no?
Well, Swim Central uses our Carver Ranches pool for some of their lessons, so we partner with them on that. But I know that some of our clubs depend on where they're located. We do sometimes use some of the other pools that are run by Swim Central, but for the clubs that are, because 2 of our clubs are Carver Ranches and Levine Slaughter, both have pools. So we normally just keep the kids there and use our swim staff.
So those, so that is,
Michelle, we'll answer that in writing.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions about the most components? I can't see if anybody.
Yes.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah, Liza, I'm not sure this is more of a question or a comment. Of course, being special needs and working with most throughout the years, I don't know if others have the same issue, the Swim Central, not be able to obtain pools that will actually take special needs children. I don't know if someone in CSC has the contact, I've spoken to them, but I could tell you historically in the past 3 years, it has been such a challenge. I just want to know if that it's been a concern from others or whatnot. But it's definitely been an issue historically that I've seen in a couple of organizations that I've been in. So I don't know if you have any updates on that or can that be looked at. Like, I'm not sure it's really a question, more of a comment then, because like I said, it's definitely, we want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to under CSE guidelines, but I just want to make sure that's something that we need to explore.
It is definitely something that we've been aware of, and I would have expected it to get better. However, the last 2 summers have not provided swim because of COVID. So hopefully all of our pools will be open, not our pools, but all of the pools will be open and able to serve. If for some reason that there is no pool available for you, you know, that we would have to work with that as it happens. I don't expect that to happen. And I do think that more and more of the pool providers are becoming more aware of the need for inclusion and working with the children with special needs.
Tracy?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of catching up. So my question is actually going back to the priority school list. And I apologize, but I was trying to understand again. Are we only allowed to provide services that are listed on that priority school list, or any Broward County school that allows us to provide services at their campus?
It is only for those schools on our list for children, unless the children are with special needs. And special needs has no boundaries of what school you can choose from. But as far as typical population and inclusion, those have to come off of our priority list.
Okay, because we are a special needs and I didn't see the list, so I got stuck where I'm going, wait, our school's not listed.
There's no
Would we-
list at all
Okay.
for special needs. It's just that children have to reside in Broward County.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Sure.
Hello, Meg. Hello? Can I hear me? Am I okay?
Go ahead, Kareem. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, this is Angel at the Boys and Girls Club. Because I'm so glad that the young lady went back, because I wanted to go back, but I was kind of scared to go back. But it's about the priority list.
Sure.
So we just need a little bit of clarity. Sort of the question she just asked. The kids, the priority school list, our kids at the club go to those schools. So is it only that those kids at the club, because you know we have other kids that go to other schools, is it only those kids that go to those particular schools who can participate in our MOST program?
Correct.
None of the other kids can participate.
That is correct. They have to attend one of the schools on our list, or they have to live in the boundaries.
In the boundaries.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, Andy?
Hi, Meg. Quick couple of questions. I don't know if this is going to be covered later, but I just thought I'd get it in since people are going backwards. When it comes to determining how many students you're going to serve at a school, and obviously you're going to work with the principal, but there's two connected questions here. One was, for instance, lots of times the schools during certain times of the year do academic camps where they're going to pull certain students to give them remediation. And certainly we're going to try and do a little bit of that, obviously, as a part of our program, but that would affect attendance. Or would we be able to count their attendance at those academic camps as long as we're working with the school on it?
There is a minimum in under our unit of service, which I believe for after school, the minimum is 2 hours.
Right.
That the child has to be there for a full unit, or 1 hour for a half unit.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If the school pulled them out to do an hour of remediation in math, for instance, and they're with us for 2 hours that day, and one of those hours is with them, even if we may be supporting them in that process, would we be able to count their time with us or no? So it would be, that's just pull out time. We would not count that as a part of their 2 hours.
Correct. We would not count it as part of their 2 hours.
All right. And the other question, which we had discussed a few weeks ago, which is some of these schools, obviously, because they have academic needs, they have 21st century programs that are run through the school district. If a school has, and those programs generally run 5 years and they're renewable. So most of the programs we're going to be talking to here and there that have one, they may be in their first year, they may be in their 5th year. So if obviously we're on a 4-year cycle here and they're in their first, and they're maybe have 1 year left or maybe 2 years left, when we write the RFP, do we write it for what will be the number or what is the number? Because like I said, one school, I know this will be their last year coming up, and the numbers that we would serve would probably triple the 2nd year. So how do we write that RFP?
So let me ask you, Andy, you would write it for what will be the numbers the first year that the program is in place. We have a history of CSC that if there is additional funding available and if there is a wait list, we do consider increasing programs that are performing well and adding more children to their enrollment opportunity in future renewal years. But for the purpose of this procurement, you would write for how many kids you're anticipating need services for the first year of that contract term.
Perfect.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only other thing, and maybe we cover this in the budget, so you can tell me to shut up at this point, but I saw in the RFP from 2016, you guys gave some guidelines on how much per student and summer and all that stuff. I don't see that this time. Are you going to supply us with something like that, or are we just going to shoot blind, especially with the higher $15 an hour and all those costs?
He's talking about cost per student.
Yeah, cost per student. I'm sorry. Cost per student. So I was just trying to figure out, you know, if there's any kind of guideline or guidance from you that's going to be expected.
We'll answer that in writing, Andy.
Rating.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And you're welcome. And let me just, since we're going backwards, let's go back a little bit. So I think Kareem from Boys and Girls, you asked a question regarding certified teachers. And I just want to be real sure that I heard the question. So the question was, can a teacher be hired to work in the MOST program that is a teacher that has a number of years experience working in a private school, but may not have a certification? Was that the question? I just want to be sure.
I'm the one that asked that question. Yes.
You asked that question?
Right.
So we're going to answer that question in writing as well in the pre-bid. Okay, so we'll give you additional clarification on how to answer that. We understand that we're allowing students that are in their last year of a program who aren't yet certified to be hired. So we will consider this question and we'll answer in writing with more detail.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? So if not, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk about catch and inclusion supports.
Okay, thank you, Liza, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Rincon, and I'm a programs manager. The next application for funding in this proposal is the Coordinated Approach to Child Health, known as Catch Kids Club. So we are looking for a provider with the capacity to train after-school program staff at multiple MOST sites that serve typically developing children as well as those with special needs. The selected provider will be responsible for preparing and securing appropriate locations to host all trainings, coordinating enrollments, and ensuring necessary technical assistance and post-learning assessments are provided. A more in-depth overview of the required program components can be found on page 15 of this proposal. Moving on to inclusion supports, which is the final application for funding. We are looking for a provider who can assist and support our after-school programs with offering high-quality inclusive programming to children with special needs that may attend our inclusion program, formerly known as general population after-school programs. The awarded provider will be responsible for working hand in hand with selected after-school programs to assist in increasing their inclusion readiness by assessing their policies, procedures, and programs designed to support inclusion. Technical assistance, training, and informal coaching is required to foster an ongoing relationship with our after-school providers. A more in-depth overview of this required program can be found on page 16 of the proposal. Are there any questions about Catch Kids Club or inclusion supports? I know I touched on it briefly, but all of the details can be found in the RFP. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to move on. The terms of agreement can be found on page 26. This outlines the initial term of service and the renewal periods for the program you may apply for. And also please note that the research section is located in attachment 15. This details the program rationale, background information, and includes the supporting research incorporated in developing this procurement. Next, I will be reviewing the budget information that begins on page 27, but I'd like to take a minute to highlight the important elements you may want to include in your submitted budget, specifically for our MOST applicants. So please understand this is not every item that should be in your budget. These are just the items that we are highlighting to make sure that you include. On page 9 of the RFP, we detail the BASCC fees. Please include those in your proposed budget if it's applicable to you based on the number of children you propose to serve. Pay close attention to the desired staff to child ratios. Your budget must align with those requirements and the required number of days of operation. On page 10, the website for the CATCH curriculum and any additional materials can be found, and the information for paths can be found on page 11. Be sure to include those curriculum costs in your budget. The snacks and meals requirement can be found on page 11, and these change in the summer, so please pay special attention to those variances. You should also include any emergency funds for meals in the event a child does not have lunch or snack. On page 12 for year-round and page 13 for summer, include the cost of mandatory family engagements and cultural arts activities in your budget. For special needs providers, you must include weekly music therapy. The parameters can be found on page 12 and 15. I'm going fast, so if you need me to slow down, just speak up. The teachers included in your budget must be scheduled for the required PBL hours and planning hours during the summer. This information can be found on pages 12 and 13. All summer programming includes an in-water swimming component. Any transportation needs for this requirement should be included in your budget under reimbursement line 8020 value added. Swimming lessons are paid directly by the CSC to Swim Central, so this cost should not be included. Page 17 has the new wage requirement. The minimum wage for all staff included in your budgets must be at least $15 per hour or $31,200 for salaried staff. And this applies to all of the procurements under this RFP. Page 26 details the startup periods for CATCH and inclusion supports, as well as the most programs. It also details the expectations for value added in your budget. So please be sure to adhere to those requirements and understand that flex funds are not included under this RFP. Lastly, any program that wishes to provide daily transportation must provide a clear rationale for the request and adhere to CSC guidelines for transportation. This is included as attachment 23. The provider budget guidelines are also included as attachment 20. Please use this to develop your budget. Pay special attention to maximum allowable administrative costs and the 5% match requirement. And also just make a note, if you are purchasing capital equipment, the limit is $1,500. So pay close attention to anything you include in your budget that has a life expectancy of more than 1 year and a cost exceeding that amount. And if there are any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand or unmute your mic.
Could you repeat? You went a little fast.
I sure did. There is a lot. Is there anything specific you'd like me to repeat?
Could you repeat about transportation again, please?
Absolutely. So any program that wishes to provide daily transportation has to provide a clear rationale and adhere to the guidelines for transportation that we have included in attachment 23.
Hi, Jessica, Sean. Thank you. I have a question. The Readers Explorers program, could you just describe a little bit more and who's required to do that, if it's a mandate or if it's an optional service offered for children scoring under their grade level? I'm not real clear on that.
I'm gonna let Liza answer that question.
So Sean, are you talking about the school year component or the summer component?
I think it's in the school year component. Is it in both? I'm not.
It's in both. In the school year, they do like technical assistance for the staff to infuse literacy. And then the summer is when they do the small group tutoring. So it's not going to be every most provider. It's based on eligibility because you have to have a certain number of kids in those grades and they have to test below grade level, the frustrational and the instructional that we explain in the RFP. So it's not going to be required for all. It'll be determined when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Jessica, a couple quick things. With teachers and teacher salaries. Right now, as many of you probably know, the school system, I guess, CARES money and stuff, they're paying their teachers $40 an hour to stay after school. And I don't know how long that money is for. Is there a number at what is reasonable to compensate teachers? I mean, so that you get teachers that actually want to work for you during the after school time and summer. And certainly that would be an aspect of also value added if there's some sort of a, like cost per student is, if there's a specific number or range that is probably a good idea. Just so, you know, some of the all-time providers maybe have good ideas, but new providers really want to get some sort of a guideline to at least help them. I know what we do for obviously middle school and high school for LEAP and Youth Force, but I'm not sure how compatible it's going to be with most.
We could, the question, as I understand it, is asking if there is, if we're giving guidance on what teachers' salary should be. Is that your
right? Their hourly cost. What we're allowed to put into the budget that's reasonable.
Okay, we will answer that in writing. I just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly. Thank you.
Yep.
And same with value added.
And the same thing with value added. If there's a guideline, just like cost per student and paying, you know, again, just a range. So we're able to build a budget that makes sense.
Yes, we will answer that in writing.
Perfect. Thank you.
I don't know if you allow this or not, but if you want to give him my telephone number, it sounds like he's just trying to start out this part of it. And yes, I have been doing this forever. I'm willing to talk to him to help him out if you want to pass that info along, if you're allowed to do that.
Michael.
Say it again.
Thanks, Michael.
You got it.
You can certainly talk to each other. That's up to you.
Okay, our next question, Tanzania.
Hi, I just wanted to, if you could go back about the curriculum portion of the budget that you mentioned.
Absolutely. So the two main curriculum components that you'll be looking for to include in your budget would be the PATHS curriculum and then the Catch Kids Club curriculum. And I believe those are on pages 11 and 12. Or page 10 is the website, has the information for Catch, and then page 11 will be for PATHS. And the website is provided there so you can browse their materials and the curriculum that they offer and include the cost in your budget.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. If there aren't any more questions, I will hand the baton over to Josh and Lorenzo so they can discuss measuring impact and continuous learning.
I have one question before we move on.
Go ahead, Deborah.
I may have misheard it, but I think, Jessica, you indicated that flex funds are not allowed.
That is correct. Not
And
for
not-
the most RFP.
in the school year most or none of it?
None.
Wow. But there's a whole section on explaining what that was.
Yeah, it's included in our attachment, in the value added attachment, because we include it for other procurements. But for most, we don't have case management, so we do not provide flex funds.
And Dr. Allen, we haven't ever provided flex funds. You may, so we've always provided value added. So you may be thinking, you know,
Okay.
the terms may be crossing over. We've always allowed for value added in most. And I know, you know, you guys are familiar with our value added component, but we've not had flex funds in most.
Okay.
And flex funds are things like, for example, where when we have case management programs, you would have a case manager assess if a family needed, for example, a light bill paid. So there's a whole assessment process that is implemented in those other programs that do that. In most, we don't have that, the flex funds offered.
Okay.
And I know this is a little bit off topic. If there are situations where you have families that are struggling in that capacity, we do have programs that are able to help with connecting families to, for example, Broward County for their rental assistance program and their utilities program. So just reached out to your program manager, and we can either have those programs come and present for you, or we can connect you to the programs in other ways. Because there are a lot of services in Broward County that I think some of us are not aware of. And I'm always amazed by how much we have in this county to support families. So if you're in those situations where you see a lot of need coming to you, we reach out to us and we can get someone out there to do a presentation about what is available.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hi, this is Allison with the Y. Can I ask a question, please?
Of course, Allison.
Jessica, you were talking about budgeting, so I'm not sure if this is where the question would be or if you wanted to hold it till later. So we were reviewing the section on the not Excel, but the budgets that we're creating. There's two. We understand that there's a school year and we understand that there's a summer. If you could provide more guidance and clear instructions as to, is it a 12-month and a 2-month? Is that covering 2023, August and September? Is it covered if you're doing August and September on the first one? We just would like a little bit more clear guidance as to the two budgets and the timeframes for each. It's not very clear to us.
I will answer that. What we're looking for is a school year budget, which we know comprises of 180 days of school with after school, and then a summer budget, which we've said has to be a minimum of 8 weeks. So those are your two budgets. We recognize that there are additional days because of the way our fiscal year falls, but you aren't going to budget for that. We are going to budget for you for that. So all you need to put forward is a school year budget and a summer budget, and not worry about the additional days.
That's helpful, Meg. And looking at it, so if we're budgeting a full-time staff member and you were doing it by month for the month of the school year plus August and September is what we were just trying to be clear on. And then you would, the full-time, you would budget them for summer, it would be the 2 months because it's 8 weeks. That's just the part that we were wanting clarity on.
Okay, so a full-time staff person, I guess we'll answer that in writing for you. Yeah, we'll have to answer that in writing. But of course it would comprise of 12 months, you know, somehow divided, but yes, thank you. Good question.
Any other questions?
Just to follow up on what she was just saying, if you're proposing the year-round, there will be just one budget for year-round that will be submitted. And then for people who are doing summer only, they would just do this for summer only. Are you understanding my question?
There's a school year budget that you would do and a summer budget you would do.
If you're doing year-round.
Right, and if you're just having summer only, it's just the summer piece.
Okay, so there's two if it's year-round. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we want to capture the cost for what is it going to cost us for the year, for the school year piece. What is it going to cost us for the school year piece? That is one budget.
Okay.
And then we want to know what is it going to cost for the summer piece.
Okay.
Both of those together are going to be your year-round budget. But we're asking for two budgets when you're submitting for a year-round program. What's the school year cost? What is the summer only cost? And then together, that is our year-round cost.
Okay, very good.
And we'll go in the pre-bid Q&A document, we'll clarify more, but we just wanted you guys kind of to understand where we're coming from. There's the school year, there's the summer, two budgets.
Maria, Sean, because this fiscal year ends mid-August, given the RFP, where are we putting the August and September of 2022? Is that just going into our school year budget and it's crossing fiscal years?
No.
We'll answer that in writing, Sean.
Thank you.
You know, so there are, you know, on the call, there are folks that currently are funded by us and there are folks that have never been funded by us. I don't want to confuse them. So we're going to answer in writing what we're looking for the two budgets for year-round services.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay. Josh and Lolo, measuring impact and continuous learning.
Thank you, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Sean Lorenzo Benane. You can call me Dr. Lorenzo or Dr. Lolo. And I'm here with Dr. Josh. We are the research and evaluation managers for MOS in the research and planning department here at CSE. So we're excited to discuss a new opportunity and element that we are implementing as part of this procurement that we are calling learning outcomes. So we began this enhancement in evaluating performance and outcomes for our programs a couple years ago and have received really good feedback from our providers, from you guys. So this process will be initiated in this latest RFP. And the idea came out of feedback we received and our desire to respond to your needs to look at different ways of measuring success in your program. So we acknowledge that you, as the providers and frontline staff, know your participants and communities better than we do. And we want to further involve you in the evaluation process to better reflect what is going on in your communities, programs, and the lived experience of your participants. So we will be reviewing several sections on different pages, but we will mostly focus on the measuring impact and continuous learning section that starts on page 17. I will reference the improving lives, improving systems section on page 5 and the results-based accountability and performance accountability sections that start on page 22. So we currently collect and report on performance measurement data to be accountable to using taxpayer dollars effectively. These outcomes are used to demonstrate the impact of the services on participants and informs funding decisions each year. Currently, for most services, we collect data through participant assessments and data pulls from Broward County School Board. It is important to gauge your capacity to collect outcome data, as accurate data collection and reporting is key to measuring true impact. We also understand that success and program effectiveness can be measured in a variety of ways, and that more data helps to produce better outcomes, ultimately leading to increased funding, staff retention, expansion of programs, and potential changes to performance evaluation. So we currently use results-based accountability, RBA, in our evaluation process, ultimately asking and answering the questions: how much did we do? How well did we do it? And is anybody better off? We want to ask an additional question now, which is basically, how can we do it better together? CSE seeks to do this in 3 ways: by fostering a culture of continuous learning, collecting additional provider recommended data, learning outcomes, and creating opportunities for providers to convene and become co-researchers in the evaluation process. So in this procurement, we are inviting you to submit 1 to 3 learning outcomes as part of your bid. These should be questions that you are curious about that directly relate to your service delivery experiences and could potentially inform program and system improvements. We encourage you to engage direct service staff in their day-to-day expertise of delivering services to determine these learning outcomes. So ask yourself, what data don't you collect but would be useful to know? There are some examples on page 21 of the procurement: tracking improvement in math and literacy skills, improvements in school attendance, behavior and grades, and improvement in resilience and academic performance. Some providers already do this, but there is no mechanism for reporting this to CSE. Why should you submit learning outcomes in your bid? This is an opportunity for you to become more involved in the evaluation process of your program, to answer questions that you undoubtedly have in order to improve your programs or the system level barriers in our community. Pursuing learning outcomes will also give you the opportunity to receive extensive TA from the research team and co-determine the process for data collection, reporting, and analysis. Proposed learning outcomes do not have to be fully fleshed out, as this will be done prior to services starting. This increased knowledge and skill can be useful in other procurements you may bid for and in determining effective course corrections in your programming. Ultimately, this process will create a continuous feedback loop with CSE via making meaning sessions, where we will share experiences, ideas, and best practices. This will lead to a greater understanding of our participants, programs, and community, which is needed to create better solutions. And are there any questions? Dr. Josh and I will answer those questions. If not, I guess nobody has questions? Okay, I'm surprised.
Lolo. Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director here at CSC for the Research and Evaluation team. I just want to make one thing clear about the learning outcomes. You don't have to do it as part of your bid. It will be done for those who are awarded funds. So you will do your learning outcomes at that point. So it's not part of your actual bid.
Right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dion Smith, Director of Program Services, and I will be helping to facilitate the remainder of the meeting. And with that, we're going to transition to an overview of the fiscal and budget sections. And I invite Alicia Williams, Assistant Director of Fiscal, to join the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Let's start this. Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Williams. I'm the Assistant Director of Finance, and I'll start by reviewing a very important area of your RFP submission, and that is the agency viability section on pages 24 through 25. Your agency's most recent audited or reviewed financial statement that covers the latest fiscal year end must be submitted in caps before you can submit the RFP application. This must be submitted by Tuesday, November 16th by 4 p.m. Based on the audited or reviewed financial statement submitted, the CSC will perform the financial viability test, which determines the maximum funding that may be awarded to an agency. After the initial review of the audited or reviewed financial statements, CSC allows for a financial viability review period for clarification or to provide additional financial information as requested. I know this question was asked earlier, but I'd recommend that you go ahead and submit your financial statements, let us do the test, and then we have a financial viability review period, so then you're able to provide additional information as needed. This period would also allow the agency to obtain a fiscal sponsor if needed. You will get the results of your financial viability test no later than November 22nd. You'll receive an email with the results, and you'll also see the results once you log into your application in CAPS. You'll be able to see the test, you'll see everything that we did, and at that point, the review period starts, and then you can provide additional documentation. If your agency failed to submit the agency financial viability section in CAPS by the deadline, you will not be able to apply for this procurement. If you are currently funded by the CSC and have already submitted your agency's most recent audited or reviewed financial statements to the CSC, you just need to indicate this by checking the appropriate box in CAPS. Also, if you are currently funded by the CSC and you utilize a fiscal sponsor, or if the CSC does not currently fund you, but you already know you will require a fiscal sponsor, you do not have to submit your agency financial statements. However, you must indicate the agency is using or will be obtaining a fiscal sponsor by checking the appropriate box in CAPS. Now let's talk through your budget form. As mentioned earlier, we have two budget forms. We have your program budget and your out of school time program budget form. This is a crucial part of the process, and we have provided some resources to assist you in creating your budget. The attachments 19 and 20 of your RFP packet contains a sample program budget and also a template for your reference. Attachment 21 contains a sample out of school time program budget form. The out of school time program budget form is a compilation of all of your site expenses into a master budget. The additional tabs that you see on this budget form just allows you to provide the details behind the wage calculation method for your part-time staffing required for your applicable site. The guidelines to assist you in preparing both the budgets is in attachments 20 and 22. At the end, when I'm finished speaking, we'll also show you a video to help you in preparing your budget. Some areas of your budget include startup expenses, and this is on page 27 of your RFP package. Your startup expenses are budget items that are needed in advance to prepare and start the program. This may include, but is not limited to, hiring and training staff, getting sites prepared, purchasing materials, and participants recruited before direct service delivery. Also, for your units of service, which is on pages 28 through 29, these are expenses that are not reimbursed on a cost reimbursement basis, but they are rolled into a unit cost. These are your operational costs. The expenses included in determining the unit costs include your salaries and benefits, local travel, space and utilities, material and supplies. Once you are awarded, your contract will identify the maximum number of units which can be billed to the CSC. Another area of your budget is the match requirement, which is on page 29. And at CSC, there is a funding requirement of at least a 5% match for all funding provided through CSC as we seek to fund projects that can operate in a fiscally sound manner. With that, your match can be provided as cash, or it can be an in-kind contribution, such as volunteers, administration overhead, equipment, or space dedicated to the project. Regarding your administrative costs, that's on page 29 through 30 of your RFP package. All applicants may request up to 12% of the total direct cost in administrative costs to manage a program. And the administrative costs support the operation of your entire agency as a whole and are related to the agency's day-to-day operations and pertain to operation expenses rather than those expenses that are directly related to the provision of services. These include, but are not limited to, payroll costs, management staff salaries, and audit fees. We'll now discuss your financial viability and your performance requirement. And these are on pages 35 through 37 of your package. All agencies requesting funding from the CNC must demonstrate financial solvency utilizing a financial viability test based on your audited financial statement, which is a required section of your application that I mentioned earlier. Now, to talk through the test a little bit more, the statements that you submit to us will allow us to perform this test. And the test is going to cover 4 areas. It looks at the current assets an agency has, which can be easily converted into cash to pay current expenses, the number of months of expenses that existing assets can cover without restrictions attached to them, the ability of an organization to meet its current obligations, and lastly, the proportion of assets provided by debt. Once the total points are calculated for the test, the final score will determine the maximum level of funding that may be awarded to an agency over the CSC fiscal year. And this is what I mentioned earlier, you will receive from us, and then we're going to have a review period for you then to provide additional documentation if needed. Funded agencies must demonstrate an ongoing capacity to meet the CSC financial performance standards. If an agency financial viability status changes during an RFP funding cycle, appropriate revisions to funding or your contract terms may be necessary at the time of renewal. Agencies wishing to apply for funding beyond the restrictions resulting from the financial viability test, you may secure a fiscal sponsor that can pass the annual fiscal test without any restrictions. The fiscal sponsor role is to receive and administer funding provided by the CSC. They're going to act as a capacity building resource for the agency carrying out the program activities, and they also serve as an accountable provider of record in a tri-party agreement. The CSC will provide an unrestricted fiscal sponsorship fee directly to a fiscal sponsor to help offset these administrative costs incurred by the sponsoring agency. The fee will be up to 7% of the total funds awarded to the sponsored agency, not to exceed $25,000 annually. Remember, the deadline for the submission of your agency financial viability section for the application via CAPS is Tuesday, November 16th by 4 p.m. Thank you. I'll now turn over to Tricia to show you the video for the budget preparation. Hello, and welcome to the Children's Services Council of Broward County. This video will provide you with an overview on how to prepare your budget, a key component of the funding process. It is essential to have a budget as it allows you to establish and accomplish the main objectives of your program. Your program budget is a method of allocating the expenses for the program that arises from the goals of this program. As with any budgetary method, the first step should be defining and identifying the budget activities. This detailed plan should include the program objectives, the task, and the activities that will be involved. Because your budget is a projected framework of the cost to operate the program, the goal is to ensure you request sufficient funds to cover all essential elements of your program. If you have a prior year budget, that is an excellent place to start using the previous year's budget and actual expenses, and then build upon this for this fiscal year. Direct program costs are most important, so make the best estimate of what resources will be needed to operate the program for the contract period. To create a successful budget, please ensure you gather the following details before you begin. You will need to consult with the program director, finance department, and your HR department to ensure you have the accurate and most complete details. First, you need the name of the program, the contract period, contract allocation amount, and contract number. Second, ensure you have all the employees that are going to be affiliated with the program, their names, titles, pay rates, time allocated to the program, and benefits that will be paid. Thirdly, the cost of the benefits, including the workers' compensation rates, health insurance premium, retirement benefit rates, and unemployment compensation rates. Next, ensure you have the various expenses that will be utilized in your program, such as the staff travel or mileage, utilities, space, supplies, flex funds, or value added if applicable. You'll also need the details of your match contribution or your match funding information. Most important, you will need the CSC provider budget guidelines. These guidelines will provide detailed information on each section of the budget form and answer any additional questions or concerns that you may have. Let us begin by reviewing some of the sections of the budget form and how to complete. First, start with the name of your agency, the name of the program, the contract number, and the period. The first section we will complete is your regular salaries and wages. In this section, you will only include positions that are direct cost to the program. This includes those program staff positions that perform activities that are exclusively associated with the specified CSC program. Indicate the name of each position, the name of the staff, whether the position is a full-time or part-time position to the agency, a description of the program cost, this is your method of calculation, and the amount that will be charged to the contract. Your FICA is automatically calculated in the budget worksheet using the total salaries and wages and the 7.65% established rate. The CSC provides funding for the following fringe benefits: retirement, life, and health, including dental, vision, short-term disability, long-term disability, gap insurance, workers' compensation, and unemployment compensation tax. This calculation is only for the employer's portion of retirement for the position. Please list each position separately. Copy the position title and staff name as stated in the salary section that we completed earlier. In the description of the program cost, this is your method of calculation column. Be sure to provide the detailed calculation that you are using to compute the amount allocated to that position, such as the monthly rate paid by the employer, the number of months, and percentage of the cost allocated to the program. Most importantly, remember, if the position is only partially allocated to the program, the fringe benefit must also be allocated at the same rate. This next section is for your life and health insurance. Again, this section is only for the employer's portion of this health that includes your dental, your vision, your short-term disability, your long-term disability insurance premium. Be sure to list each position separately. Copy the position title and the staff name as stated in the prior section for the salary. Be sure to include your method of calculation, and also again, if the position is only partially allocated to the program, be sure that the fringe benefit is allocated at the same rate. The next section is your workers' compensation, which is insurance purchased by the agency that provides benefits for job-related employee injuries. Be sure to list each position covered by your workers' compensation policy and calculate the cost based on the policy rate and the portion of their salary allocated to the program. Next section is your unemployment compensation. This is an employer-funded tax that gives short-term benefits to those who lost or left their jobs for various reasons. The state of Florida's unemployment compensation rate is based on the first $7,000 of an employee's pay times the state of Florida unemployment tax rate for the year. Again, please be sure to list each position separately. Copy the position title and staff name as stated in the salary section. And again, most importantly, if the position is partially allocated to the program, be sure your fringe benefit is also allocated at the same rate. We will now discuss your various expense accounts. Each expense line should be completed with the corresponding detailed description of the program cost and also the budgeted cost that will be charged to the CSC contract. You may perform calculations in the amount charged to contract column of the Excel worksheet, or you may input the whole dollar amount charged based on the description of the program cost outline. Expand rows or wrap text to fit into the rows. Expense line 1200 is for local or out-of-town staff travel. These are positions requiring travel, mileage rates, monthly mileage estimates, and total budgeted reimbursement. Expense line 1300 is for contractual services, consultants, or professional fees. For each contractual staff or consultant or contracted service, be sure to list the position title, the name if known, the services to be provided, the rates of pay, work products, and method of payment. In this sample budget that we're reviewing, we only have mileage. We do not have any contractual services. So you'll only utilize the expense lines that are applicable to your program. Expense line 1400 is for space and utilities. The building's total square footage must be documented for the budget and the cost per square foot. The cost per square foot should not exceed $22 per square feet, inclusive of janitorial and utilities. If janitorial and utilities are budgeted separately in the cost per square foot, then the maximum cost for space is $14 per square feet. The provider may choose one of two allocation methods. The allocation method chosen should be based on the nature of the services provided in the program. Programs that require space per student participant would utilize an allocation based on usage of square footage per space. Clinical intensive type programs that require space based on the number of staff would use an allocation based on their full-time employees. Please reference our budget guidelines, which provides more information and can help assure you choose the correct allocation. Things to remember. Regardless of the method that you utilize to calculate your space, the CSC will not reimburse for the cost of space that exceeds $22 per square feet, inclusive of janitorial and utilities. If janitorial and utilities are budgeted separately in the cost per square feet, then the maximum cost for space should not exceed $14 per square feet. Line 1600 is for your expense and your supplies. Expense includes, but are not limited to, office supplies, communications, printing and postage, training materials, snacks, background screening. Expenses also include expendable items costing less than $1,500, such as books, tape recorders, records, management software, etc. Generally, supplies include any materials that are expendable or consumed during the project year. Our next section is our cost reimbursement lines. Items requested in budget lines 8010 to 8095 are reimbursed solely on a cost reimbursement basis. Therefore, support and documentation will be required with your reimbursement request to support these expenses. To ensure that you fully utilize funds budgeted in these areas, think carefully. Only include amounts that are highly likely to be spent and do not over budget in these areas. Expense line 8010 is for flex funds. This may be used to meet individual client needs that present barriers to program participation and success. This emergency financial assistance allows providers to address the threat of foreclosure, eviction, or termination of utility services, temporary childcare expenses, home repairs, food, clothing, back-to-school supplies, bus passes, or gas cards, or other services or commodities. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. Expense line 8020 is for value added. This is used to pay for creative program enhancements that support the program's goals and improve participant participation and commitment. Food or refreshment for group activities, transportation for field trips, and participation or goal achievement incentives such as gift certificates or tickets to games or shows are some examples. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In our sample budget that we're reviewing, we're only utilizing expense lines 8010, 8020, and 8050. Please refer to your provider budget guidelines for additional details behind the additional expense line items. This section is our startup expense line items. Please note, these funds are intended for those budgeted items needed to prepare and start the program. They must be used within 30 to 90 days of the contract effective date as specified. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. Please note that startup is used only during the initial contract year. These costs should be assigned to the appropriate expense line in subsequent years, such as staffing or expenses, etc. Expense line 8092 is for startup salaries or benefits. In this section, you will need to list each position by position title. The position title must match exactly the position title used in the contract scope of work staffing chart. Show the annual salary rate and the percentage of time to be devoted to the program. Include formulas used to calculate the fringe benefits. Only include positions that are startup positions. These funds are cost reimbursement. Startup staff benefit, FICA, is used to calculate it at 7.65% on all salaries. Health insurance is required for all employees working 30 or more hours per week. Retirement expenses optional, but definitely allowable by the CSC. Show formulas used to calculate fringe benefits that are retirement, insurance, workers' comp, unemployment, etc. Be sure to identify which positions the various calculations are referring to. Be sure to list each position separately. In this section for 8092, only include positions that are startup positions. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In subsequent years, these costs should then be assigned to staffing. Expense line 8093 is for your startup expense or supplies. Itemize expendable items and show how the amounts are calculated. Expenses include but are not limited to office supplies, communications, printing and postage, training materials. Expenses also include expendable items costing less than $1,500, such as books, testing instruments, tape recorders. Other items include non-capital equipment items with a cost of less than $1,500. Example, your computers, your printer, your cabinets. Generally, supplies include any materials that are expendable or consumed during the course of the project. Only include supplies that are startup supplies. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In our example, we're utilizing expense line 8093. In this sample program budget, we are utilizing laptops, which we're purchasing a total of 6 for $750. We're also purchasing 1 printer and then the Microsoft Office software for $200. Expense line 8900 is for your administrative cost. Administrative costs relate to the day-to-day operations of the agency and pertain to operation expenses rather than those expenses that are directly related to the provision of services. For example, a receptionist answering all incoming calls, the cost of doing payroll for the entire agency, and management staff salaries could count as administrative cost. CSC program administrative cost is limited to 12% of the requested amount, less the administrative cost. This means that you may request up to 12% of the total direct service costs as administrative costs to administer the project. Administrative costs must be itemized and defined and must include a description of the method of calculation. The final section on your budget will be for your match contributions. The CSC seeks to fund projects that it can expect to operate in a fiscally sound manner. Therefore, there is a funding requirement of a 5% match for all funding provided through the CSC. It is required that, at a minimum, 5% of the total grant dollars requested from the CSC be provided by any lead agency and/or any partners involved in a CSC-funded program. The match can be provided as cash or an in-kind contribution and must be directly related to the program's operation. Acceptable cash match may include matching funds from another unallocated source that directly supports the program. Parent fees are not allowed as cash matches. Acceptable in-kind contribution may include volunteers, administrative overhead, and equipment or space dedicated to the program. Now that you've completed your budget, this is the perfect time to be sure to double-check all entries and formulas before finalizing your budget. Congratulations, you have now completed building your budget. Okay, thanks, Tricia. Is there any question on the fiscal side?
Before we get too far into questions, if there are a couple of quick things I'd like to speak to. In the video, it references contract numbers. We do recognize that this is a procurement, so that would not be an expectation that you have that information. Additionally, just want to reiterate this procurement does not require, say it differently, does not allow for flex funds. The video covers that, but again, just reiterating that that is not an option under this procurement. Value added, I think the video references use of incentives. Typically, value added in this area is for enhancement of programming. So it would be for your field trips, things of that nature, not necessarily for gifts, cards to reaching some academic goal or something along that lines. So again, just wanted to clarify a hair, because this is a global video that we use for all budgeting circumstances. All right. Meg, did you have something else to add?
No, we're good. Thank you.
And with that, going back to, are
Sorry.
there?
I do. And that was, Alicia, if you could touch on the startup and the time limit that they have for that, because it's different in this proposal.
Yes, normally it is the 90 days for this one. I know it's extended through July 31st of 2023 for the most. Okay, and that's for the full school year in the summer. It's going through July 31st of 2023. That's strictly for the most.
Thank you.
But I know the video does say 90. That's generally what we do.
Thank you.
You had something, Dion?
No.
Michael. I was going to go to Michael.
Yes, I have a question. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify something that I think you were answering me about earlier.
Yes.
So you had said, go ahead and attach the audit along with an explanation on it. But then right after that, you had said, if you guys already have the audit, just go ahead and click where you already have it. You guys already do have my audit. Can I still submit it again with an explanation?
You can, but if we have your most recent one for your latest ending fiscal year, you don't need to submit it again. If we have the most recent.
But I thought you had said to submit it anyway, so I can put some explanation on it. Or should I just wait for you guys to contact me? I'm sorry.
Sure. You can go ahead and do that and we'll take a look at it. You can submit it again. We were just trying to save the step. If we already have it on file for you because you're a current funder, you wouldn't need to submit it again, but you can definitely go ahead and put it in.
Okay, I want to do whatever's, the right thing to do. So I can do either way, but if that's the right way to do it, I will do it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
So Alicia and Michael, I think that the reason Michael is asking, should he resubmit it, is there's additional documentation that we don't have that he wants us to become aware of. And that's why he's saying, generally speaking, if we already have your audit, as Alicia said, we don't need it again. But Michael's situation is different. He's saying, I have additional documentation that I want you to consider. So how do I get you that documentation? So yes, Michael, submit us that documentation.
Thank you very much, Maria. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Alexander Rev.
Hi, this is BJ with Alexander Rev.
Hi, BJ.
I may have missed one of the things that you said about you talk about a fiscal sponsor fee.
Yes.
How much percentage, please?
It's a 7% up to a total of 25,000.
I can't raise my hand on this thing.
Okay. It's 7% up to 25,000 annually.
Thank you.
Sure. Michelle?
Sorry. I have to unmute myself so I can ask the question. So I have actually two questions. So Michael was just saying something about submitting additional documentation. So we are also a current provider, and you already have our financial statements. We did upload it though, just in case. But there seemed like where else would we be able to submit and upload additional documentation for that feasibility test? It seemed like there was only a spot to upload the financial statement.
I have to take a look. We can answer that in writing for you, but I know for Michael's situation is a little bit different. If if you're a current funder, if we have everything that we need already, when we respond to you in that review period, that's when you can go ahead and communicate and put additional documentation if needed. It's only if it's needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my second question, so we're talking about when we're doing the budget, you're talking about units. So does that mean we are not going to continue cost reimbursement? Right now we're doing full cost reimbursement. Are we going back to units?
We anticipate returning to units of service with the new RFP.
We are. Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Cora?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a question regarding the fiscal viability. As a municipality, our actual audit comes very late. So in the circumstance where it's being requested for the fiscal year that just ended would have been 9/30, we won't have it yet. So how do we, what should we submit? Should we submit the last one approved by the commission?
You can do the last one. We do require the latest one, and we give 180 days for you to get it into us. So you're still within that time frame. So it wouldn't be due yet for you. So you can submit the prior one that you have since
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it just ended September. So for you, it's really not due till March, you know, if you are a
Okay.
current vendor with us. Yeah.
All righty. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Any,
All right. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Alicia. And with that, I'm going to invite Tricia to.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes,
I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. I'm sorry.
that's all right.
This is Children's Services Council, correct?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, I had inquired, we're a facility that's 3 years old, and I had inquired about Children's Services Council because I know I've seen you do phenomenal work in the community with different situations. Is it true or not true that a business has to be established at least 5 years before they can apply for any partnering with Children's Services Council?
So the short answer is no, but you have to be able to demonstrate fiscal viability, as Alicia outlined in her segment. So you would need to have financials that you can submit, pass our fiscal viability test, as well as the showing a demonstrated history of success in service delivery would help you position yourself for opportunities. But no, we do not have a requirement related to that.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Otis, I'm sorry.
Dion, and I would just follow up that on page 6 of the procurement under D, who may apply, it just gives additional language for you to review where it talks about applicants may be nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, incorporated or qualified to do business in the state of Florida, or governmental entities. And then it says proof of nonprofit status, for-profit status, or government entity status must be submitted upon request by CSC staff. So it just gives you a little bit additional information about who may apply for the procurement.
Okay, and you said that's on page 6, so I need to familiarize myself.
Yep, it's on page 6.
Okay.
Page 6, letter D, who may apply.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Maria. Otis, I believe you were next to ask a question.
That's okay. It was just answered. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Alexander Rep.
Yes, I think this question was asked earlier. I just wanted to make sure that an answer will be given. It's about the someone who received the PPP and who actually did the forgiveness. Would they be able to apply if it shows up on their statement?
You can apply. I just ask that you submit your financial statements and let us do the test and then come back to you if we need additional documentation, or you know, based on the score that you come in, we'll communicate with you. But I would say go ahead and submit your statements and let us take it from there.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to transition to Tricia Dowell to talk to us about the contract administration procurement system that we call CAPS.
Thank you, Dion. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tricia Dowell, Assistant Director in Program Services. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our CAP system, which is our web-based system for applying for procurements at CSC. I'm going to start by showing you guys a video. It's about 20 minutes long. I know some of you may have seen a video before, or you may have actually applied in CAPS before. I just want to let you know that there have been some enhancements and some changes that were made approximately 5 months ago. So this is a newer video. So if you feel like you know this, you've done it before, I would ask you to please stay and watch the video because there have been a few changes. And when the video completes, I will come back and just go over a few things and then take any questions.
Welcome to the CAPS tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to learn on how to apply for a procurement that has been posted by CSC. The tutorial will include a mock procurement, and none of the questions or scenarios relate to a live procurement or any procurement that may be posted by CSC in the future. This video will use acronyms such as CAPS, which is the Contracts Administration and the Procurement System, which is the online portal used to apply for any procurements, CSC, which is Children's Services Council of Broward County, RFP, RFQ stand for Request for Proposals or Qualifications, EIN or the SunBiz number stand for the Employer Identification Number, and AFF stands for the Application for Funding. Any procurement that has been posted by CSC would be made available on the main website at www.cscbroward.org on its main page and also on the Providers Funding Opportunities page. On the Funding Opportunities page, you will also find any and all tutorials such as this video be available for you to refer to in the future while applying for a procurement. So once you select the procurement that you would like to apply from this page, you would land on a page that looks like this, which lists the published date and the expiration date and a brief description of the RFP that has been posted. Today, we're going to work with the 2021 enhancement test. I'm going to go ahead and click on this particular procurement, which will land me on a page that shows me the timetable or the timeline attached with the procurement, any attachments such as the full RFP document, rating tool, etc. The type of procurement it is. So in this case, it's an RFP, the date it was made available, the due date, the time remaining, and the expiration date. To download any attachments, you would need to sign in. If you do not have a login, the system will prompt you to create a login. You can start an application by clicking on either spot on the top left or the blue Start a New Application. Also, the Ask a Question will be made available to you in the time frame that Ask a Question has been posted by CSC. So let's go in and start a new application. So in this case, I'm going to use a test user and log into the system. If you're a new user, you would just need to put in your first name, last name, and email address to proceed with the application. You would land on the same page if you were to download any attachments or resources from the main page. So I'm going to use applications 10 and go ahead and log into the system. The first thing that the system does is prompt me to update my contact information. Once I update my contact information, it asks me if I'm applying as an individual or an agency. If I'm going to choose an agency for now and select my organization. There are some organizations that are already available in the drop-down list. If your organization is not listed, click on Organization Not Listed, and you will be prompted to enter your employer identification number, which will pull your organization from the SunBiz website and auto-populate in the system. So for now, I'm going to just select something from the drop-down list and proceed. Then it prompts me to put in a application name, and in this case, I'm going to put it in as a test application. If you're applying for more than one procurement on CSC's website, this is for your reference to appropriately label your applications so you know how to organize them or you can refer to them easily on your end. If you're working with any co-authors, this is the place where you would add your co-author. You would simply click on Add More, enter their title, first name, last name, email, phone, and check on Send them an email so that they're prompted to create a login for the system on their end. This will allow them to work on the application or the proposal simultaneously with you. In this case, I'm going to apply myself and click on Proceed. So once you click on Proceed, you'll land on a page which states your application name, your agency name, the status of your application, which is currently in progress, the due date, and the expiration date. It will also give your application an ID number. You will see that on the right-hand side, there is a pod called sections. These are all the sections associated with this application for funding and this procurement. Each section may have a different deadline. So in this case, the agency financial viability is due on 6/25, whereas all the other sections are due on 6/30. You will also see a modify button on the top ribbon and also modify blue buttons in the particular sections. You can start to complete your application by clicking on either of the modify buttons. If you're an agency that knows that you will use a fiscal sponsor to apply, you can add your fiscal sponsor by clicking on the edit button in the add a fiscal sponsor tab. Once you go here, you can either choose from an organization from the drop-down list or click on organization not listed and enter the fiscal sponsor's EIN number and their name and assign them as a fiscal sponsor. In this case, we will apply without a fiscal sponsor for now. The process to add a fiscal sponsor after the financial viability would be the same, or midway through the application would be the same, as long as you're doing it before its deadline date. The files pod lists any and all files that you upload into this particular proposal or AFF. The solicitation attachments are all the attachments that you saw on the first page where you started the new application. You can also view the solicitation by clicking on View Solicitation, which will land you on the first page that you were on where you started the application. Ask a question is still available for you, and you can submit a question to CSC as long as you're within the time frame of submitting questions. You can also print your application by clicking on Print. And again, the view application is the long form view of your full application. You will see that there is a Submit Full Application to CSC button that's grayed out. This will only be made available to you once all the red X's turn into a green check mark. It will also tell you that the full application has not yet been submitted. It can only be submitted after all sections have been marked complete. So let's go in and modify this application. So I'm going to go in and click on Modify Forms. And once I do that, I'm going to attach the files that this section is asking. You'll see that it's asking to upload 2 files. So I'm going to select them from my computer. Please be very mindful of the file types that you're attaching. If an incorrect file is attached, it may not be considered. So please be mindful of the file type and also the label. So I'm going to go ahead and select the second file as well. And then you'll see that there's a Mark this section completed checkbox that's been provided. So if you think that you've attached the correct file types and you want to move on, you can check this off and click on Next. But if you, for some reason, it was not the correct response and you wanted to swap it out later, you can just click on Save and Continue Later. If you click on Save and Continue Later, the section will not turn into a green check mark. It will stay as a red X, which is informing you that this section needs your attention and you need to go in and verify information. You'll still see that the files that you attached are still in here. So let's say for now that I am confirming that these are the correct files and I want to move on and truly mark this section as completed. I'm going to check off mark this section as completed and go to the next section. So as soon as I do that, it turns into a green check mark. The next section is the agency financial viability. So this section is extremely important. This is the only section that once you submit it to CSC, it cannot be recalled. And you'll see a warning here that this section can't be modified or recalled once submitted. So be mindful of the section deadline and also the file types you're attaching, as mentioned previously, that once you submit it, you cannot modify the section, whereas all other sections are available for you to modify up until the deadline for the procurement or until you do the final submission of the application to CSC. The agency financial viability gives you 4 options. If you choose to submit your audited financial statements, reviewed statements, or you can also choose that CSC currently has your most recent audited or reviewed financial statements on file, or if you're an agency that is going to assign a fiscal sponsor from the get-go, as we previously talked about, you can choose the 4th option. So pick your correct options. If you're choosing your audited financial statements, you would click on Audited Financial Statements and choose the appropriate file in the Audited Financial Statements section. attach it, and proceed further. Let's say you were not going to choose your audited financial statements and just do the reviewed statements. You would repeat the same process, but check off reviewed financial statements and choose the appropriate file and attach it in that particular section, in that particular pod. Let's say you select that CSE currently has the most recent audited or reviewed financial statements. You'll just click on that option. In this scenario, you do not need to attach any files, as you're indicating that CSE has them on file, and the decision would be made based on the review of that file, and you would receive it later through the process. If you're an agency that's assigning a fiscal sponsor from the get-go, click on agency chooses not to submit financial statements and will assign a fiscal sponsor, and repeat the process of assigning a fiscal sponsor that we spoke about earlier in the application process. Please be sure to assign your fiscal sponsor, enter their organization name, and assign them as a fiscal sponsor, which will prompt them to log into the system and complete the steps that they need to do in order for your application to be considered. So in this case, I'm going to attach the audited statements, and I'm just attaching a test file for the purpose of this tutorial. And I am going to click on next. If I click on next without marking the section completed, or if I click on save and continue later, I'll still be able to modify it, because what it tells me is that I haven't submitted it to CSE yet. And how I know that is it's still a red X. However, if I were to mark this section as completed and click on next, it will be submitted to CSE, and there will not be the ability to do a recall from your end. And I want you to pay attention that this is your screen. So it's telling you that you've submitted or you've completed the agency financial viability on this date. However, when you go into the applications details view, it's still showing as a red X. So what this means is that yes, you've submitted it, but it's still pending review from CSE end. When CSE does the review, you'll receive a decision. The decision would be sent to you via an email notification prompting you to log into the system and to accept or deny that decision. Or if you're already logged into the system, you would see on the main dashboard or on the screen on the top left, or also under the agency financial viability. Once you accept the decision or assign a fiscal sponsor, whatever the case may be, once you make that decision, that is when this will turn into a green check mark. So until you accept it, it's going to remain as a red X under the application details page, and the submit full application to CSE would still remain grayed out until you receive green checks on all these sections. I also want you to notice that the warning that it states that the financial viability section must be completed, reviewed by CSE, and the award limitation must be accepted by the agency before the full application can be submitted for consideration. It also states that the full application has not yet been submitted. The application can only be submitted after all sections have been marked completed. So let's go back into the modify view and go to the next section that you want to modify. So let's go to the agency details section number 1. The first question is a Q&A. You'll see that it has a word limit of 900 words. You'll also see that there's a word tracker at the bottom. Once I start typing, it keeps a track of how many words are remaining, and it will not allow you to type beyond 900 words. This is a plain text box. So if you are copy pasting your response, keep it in a format-free version on your Word and paste it, which will be the easiest way for you to paste. If you're trying to paste beyond 900 words, the system will cut it off at 900 words. So be mindful of the word limit. Since it's a plain text box, you cannot highlight, underline, or italicize anything. Everything must be done in plain text only. The next question is a yes or no. If I were to select no, nothing really happens. If I select yes, there may be additional questions that I may need to answer. So there could be some questions in your AFF that have a yes and no, and depending on your response, you may have extra information that you may need to provide. So for now, I'm going to mark this section as completed, click on next. And I want you to see that every time I do that, I still have the ability to go in and modify the sections that I've already marked as completed. So the forms was marked as completed, so was the agency detail section 1, but I still have the modify buttons available. And that is happening before because the procurement deadline hasn't passed, and also that you haven't submitted the full application to CSE. If you were to submit the full application to CSE, those modifies would go away, or if it's beyond the deadline, it would go away. So let's go into the second section. It's a chart form. So here it's asking you to enter a chart and an entry. So I'm going to click on new entry, and I'm going to answer the questions that it's asking and save my entry. So once I do that, you'll see that entry pop up on the chart. You can also do a second entry and as many as you like, depending on what's being asked. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this section as completed and go to the next section. The next section is the budget section. It's asking you to upload a file. Please, again, be very mindful of the file type that you upload, and it's the correct file. If it's an incorrect file that you upload, it may not be considered. You can also see that a sample program budget template has been provided to you here. It's a hyperlink, so if you were to click on this, it takes you to a page, and you can download and print this template, or just view it in this screen. I'm going to go ahead and click on back and upload a budget file. So I'm going to attach it here, mark the section as completed, and click on save and continue later. So again, this is your view. It's telling that you've completed all the sections. You still have the ability to modify all sections besides the agency financial viability section. It says to submit your full application, click on the application details view. So I'm going to click there. But here I can see that I'm still waiting for CS to make a decision on the agency financial viability. That's the only section that's a red X. All others are into a green check mark. But because we have one red X, the submit full application to CSC is not available. But up until this point, you still can modify any other section that is needed. If you need to modify it, you can just click on modify and proceed. So now I'm going to go in as on the back end and make a decision on your agency financial viability, and then show you what happens on your end. So when CSC makes a decision on your financial viability, you'll receive a notification from the system via an email, which is going to tell you what that decision is. So currently the decision was made, and I received an email saying I have no award limitations. It also prompts me to go into my application and accept the decision. So if you're logged out, you can log in via the link provided in the email, or if you're already logged in, which I am right now, I would just refresh my page, and it will prompt me to accept the maximum qualifying amounts. Also, it says the status, which is no award limitations. I can do this in two spots, either accept it on the top left here, or also under the agency financial viability where it says accept max qualifying amount. If the decision was something else, such as provisional or conditional, the buttons here would say provisional or conditional, and you would have a second option to assign a fiscal sponsor. So if you were to assign a fiscal sponsor, you would click on the assign a fiscal sponsor and go through the same process that we spoke about earlier on in this tutorial. And the fiscal sponsor would get notified and would have to complete their part in order for your application to get considered. So for now, let's just go in and accept max qualifying amount. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you will see that all these red X's are now green check marks, and the submit full application to CSC buttons become available. Again, you can still modify any section up until now if you want to. If not, and if you're ready to submit your full application, you can do so as well. Keep in mind that in order to submit the full application, you have to be under the view application view. If you're under the modify view, it still just gives you only the ability to submit it. But again, you have a warning that for you to submit the full application to CSC, you need to go into the application details tab and submit the full application to CSC. Also note that your application status is currently sitting in progress. As soon as you submit it, it will go into the submit status. You'll see that there's a couple of cache buttons provided on the page. If for some reason your page is not refreshing, we suggest just clicking on cache. It makes your page refresh and information pop up smoother and easier. We recommend using the cache button every so often, just so that it's clear and all information is being displayed properly. So if you're ready to submit the full application to CSC, just go in and click on submit full application to CSC. There'll be a warning that pops up that are you sure you want to submit it? Click on OK. And your application has been received by CSC. All the modify buttons have disappeared, and you just have a long form view of all the Q&A and your responses. And also under the files pod, you will see that there's now a lot of files. These are all the files that were provided by you with your proposal that were submitted to CSC. Authorized agency users is you, and if you've added anybody else, they would be listed down here. Solicitation attachments is again all the attachments associated with this procurement. You can access them at any time you want to. This video will also be available to you under the solicitation attachment, so you will have easy access if you need to refer to anything here. This concludes our tutorial. Thank you.
Okay, so just a few things I want to point out. This video, like was mentioned in the video, will be available to you at any time. So I know there was a lot of information in there. You can view this video anytime you want to, as many times as you want to. It's available on the CSC website. You can see the website right here, the cscbroward.org, procurement and funding opportunities. It's also available within the CAP system itself. So in the solicitation attachments where you see the RFP and all the various attachments, at the very bottom, you will see two videos. One will be the budget video that Alicia went over. So you could view that again, and then also will be this video. So you could go to either place if you want to view the video again. Technical questions on the use of CAPS will be directed to our help desk, which is helpdesk@cscbroward.org. So we will accept technical questions on the use of CAPS at any point up until when the deadline for submission. So unlike the other questions you might have, programmatic questions that can happen now during the pre-bid or during the Q&A period, the technical questions can come in anytime up until the deadline. We do just warn you that we caution you not to wait until the last minute to start using the system or to complete your application, because we cannot guarantee an immediate response if you're having a technical issue. It is available during regular business hours. And again, we can't guarantee that if it's 10 minutes before the procurement's due and you're having a technical issue, that we would be able to assist you in that time frame. So please make sure that you're aware of all the timelines when you're working on your application. But again, if you do have any technical issues, you're unsure, the system, you don't think it's working correctly for you, you can send an email to the help desk. Please don't send an email or call any CSC staff. They will have to redirect that back to the help desk, so it will just delay your response. Just directly email the help desk to get the assistance that you need. And then, as was mentioned before, any programmatic questions that you don't think of today during this pre-bid, you will be able to ask starting basically now when this pre-bid is over up until Friday, the 5th at 4 p.m. And as was shown in the video, there'll be a little tab at the top of the application that says ask a question. That's what you would click on, and you would type your question in there. And then when we receive all of those, we will post the questions and responses along with everything that was asked and answered today when we post the Q&A, and that will also be in CAPS in the same place where all the attachments currently are, is where you will see the Q&A document. And then I just wanted to reiterate, I know this was mentioned, I think by Maria, but just keep in mind that there are 6 different applications. So please be sure that you are clicking on the application that you want to complete. So there's 4 different versions for most, and then there's 1 for catch and 1 for inclusion support. You may be submitting multiple applications depending on your circumstances and what you're proposing. For example, if you are going to serve general population and you have some sites that you want to do year round and some sites that you would just do summer only, that would be 2 separate applications you would have to submit. So you would do 1 application for all of your year round sites, and then you would do a separate application for your summer only sites, choosing obviously the correct application depending on what you're doing. I think that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions on the CAP system?
Believe I saw Tanzia, you had your hand up, or was that an error?
Yeah, hi, it's Tanzania. I did have my hand up, but she actually just answered my question. I wanted clarity on the question that was answered before about the year-round versus summer. So if we're doing a year-round program, even if it's the same site, beyond just separating the budgets, we need to do the 2 separate applications, correct?
Let me clarify. There might be confusion. So if you're doing year-round, so you're picking a particular site and you're gonna serve that school during the school year and the summer, that would be a year-round application. If you have a site that you are only serving for the summer, that's when you would do a separate application for a summer only. And Meg, I don't know if you want to add anything to that to make it clearer.
Because, so as a provider, if you are providing services for the school year at 5 sites, you may not, because of the principal's wishes, you may not be able to be there for the summer. So you would still be, then it would still be considered year-round that you would be applying for, because there is no school year application. So if you're a provider and you have some sites that are going to be open for the school year and other sites that are going to be open for summer, we do allow that. And it would still be considered a year-round application. Is that clear, or did I just make mud? I guess it's clear.
Yeah, I think I'm clear on it. I'm good for our site. So yeah, I have clarity. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Joaquin?
So just a quick question. If we're applying, I guess, for year round, and ultimately CSC decides it's only summer that they're gonna afford us, fund us for, do we approach it like that? I have some sites that are only summer sites right now, but I think we have enough schools and enough participants in our current programming that we can offer year round. Is that something that CSC is going to make that decision once reviewing the application and just determine whether it's year round or summer, or is it something that the way we submit the application for?
So the short answer is you would be applying for whatever service you want to provide. So if you're applying to do school year and summer, that would be a year-round application. We would not modify the award to be simply summer, because that's not what you applied for.
So that would I submit 2 applications then, one for year round and one for summer then?
No.
If you plan to only do summer services, then you would apply for summer. If you're planning on doing year-round services, you would apply for under the year-round application.
So, and let me just add something. You might have 2 sites that are year-round sites. So for those 2 sites, you would submit year-round application for those 2 sites. And maybe you have 3 additional sites that are summer only. So then you would submit for those sites the summer only application. You guys are saying no.
No.
There are instances where sites collapse during the summer. And so we will clarify fully in writing, but right now you would be applying either year-round if you plan to offer school year and summer. And if all you're planning to do, period, is just summer, you would apply for just summer only.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Makes sense.
All right. So we will again clarify in writing, but that's the direction we're sharing in this moment. A couple of quick things. Are there any other questions? I'm sorry.
can I ask Dan, I just wanted to clarify with Gary. Gary, were you able to remove the watermark? Because if not, I can show you how to do that.
Google is a very powerful
Okay.
tool. Yes, yes,
Okay.
I was able to. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
We did receive a few questions prior to the bidders conference. However, we were in the cone of silence at that time. So this is your opportunity to ask those questions, or please feel free to utilize the Q&A period to submit your your question in writing through the CAP system, and we will respond to those questions at that time. And barring any other questions. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of this most bidders conference. Thank you all for attending. We look forward to your questions and your future applications. And good luck to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.